This video has been supported by Skillshare. Hey guys, a bit of a diverse video today about a few of the noteworthy things that happened while I was busy obsessing about CNC machines and lasers. First, I got an EDM arc generator from BAXEDM. Electronic dance music is nice and all, but this thing will eventually sound like this. Electric discharge machining isn't necessarily appealing to everyone's ears, but the results that are possible with this machining technology are an internet phenomenon already. You've probably seen one or more of these incredible demo pieces before, with tight tolerances and impossible to CNC machine shapes. Something as awesome and unusual as this is of course very difficult. And I'm not sure yet if I'm ready to take on another 1-year project for a real multi-axis wire EDM construction. This BX17 arc generator certainly is ready for that job. However, it could also become a much easier EDM drilling or die sinking machine, both of which would be incredibly useful additions to my existing CNC machine. No promises, but you guys are the audience, and you'll have to do the watching in the end. Let me know what you'd like me to spend time on. Either way, that's all happening next year. If you don't want to wait that long, check out the manufacturer's own YouTube channel BAXEDM, where he's documenting precisely how his own wire EDM machine works, how he's constantly improving it, and how he uses it to make these logos, for example. Here's another capable arc generator. This one is primarily trying to predict and prevent arcs, however. Let me try and prop it up real quick. This is a withstanding voltage and insulation tester made by Kikuzui in Japan. It can source up to 5 kV AC to test cables, transformer windings, opto-isolators and so forth. It was cheap on eBay because non-functional. That's why it's here. But it's not always non-functional, and that makes it especially spicy. It really seems to spring back to life randomly, as if hoping to finally catch someone red-handed and insulation testing a human. Japanese roulette. I love it. I've got to fix it eventually, not because I necessarily need an insulation tester, but because it's a capable and safe high-voltage source, with the AC output being able to directly feed a high-voltage multiplier cascade and, make it less and less safe. Speaking of less safe, I also bought a few of these boxes. Those are new old stock high-voltage film capacitors. 350 microfarads, 1500 volt. Few things are less safe than large amounts of stored high voltage. The manufacturer knows about that, which is why they are shorting out the contacts with this piece of sheet metal for shipping. Each of these cans can hold 400 joules, the energy of a gunshot. These are made for electric grid and locomotive applications, so their ESR and ESL values are not particularly good for instantaneous explosive dumping of all of their energy at once, which arguably has the highest fun potential. But they are still really mean, and you can effectively halve resistance and inductance by connecting two in parallel, or more. My usual black nitrile gloves don't provide enough protection to handle these cans of insta-death safely. I also wouldn't want to depend my life on these extra thick rubber gloves from Banggood, but they are specifically made for high voltage insulation, so as another safety layer in addition to common sense, I think they are pretty great. Let's use common sense and blow something up for science and entertainment. I'm using this old calibrator, which conveniently happens to have a 1.5 kV output on the rear, to slowly charge one of the caps via a few resistors. And a little RC servo lets me short out the leads remotely. 10 volt, nothing to write home about. A 100 volt sounds a little bit better already. 500 volt, certainly wouldn't want to tongue test that. And finally the 1.5 kV. Hats off to Bryman for being able to measure that. Okay, cool. That had me entertained for roughly 3.5 minutes. But what's the end goal here? I could try and relocate such a bright discharge into a flash tube. This one happens to sit inside a water-cooled ceramic cavity, so it could take multiple of those discharges per second. Also in there, a neodymium-doped ytterbium aluminium garnet. A beautiful pink crystal rod going straight through. That could be pumped by those bright flashes and emit laser radiation ultimately. For that to work out, there are a few essential pieces missing. But not much longer. This package is from Switzerland, from a viewer who's been YouTubing himself for longer than I have, while showing an incredible variety of electronics and scientific devices, and taking them all apart as is proper. Have a look at Play with Junk on YouTube for aircraft instruments, medical technology, vintage light bulb logic, and lasers, of course. Wow, look at this. This package deserves its own video. And an equally stuffed return package. Oh yeah, that'll do. Last point for today, a bit of a road trip. I'm picking up a new old Tony toy that I've been wanting forever. For that I have to rent a vehicle again. Not the big semi-truck this time, but this cute Mercedes Vito. Bank robbers and tradesmen's first choice should be big enough for what I'm planning. I'm not going south today, but east in the Berlin direction. To pick up something big and orange. It's a bit of a long journey, and the name of what I'm picking up doesn't even start with precision or CNC, but I think it's going to be great anyway. Okay, it's chaotic here, so I couldn't film anything, but I got the goods and strapped them in to at least resemble some form of safety. Can you guess what this is? If you're German, you probably can. It seems to have a tank cap, so it could be a combustion power generator. But the gas input and the big ground clamp are kind of giving it away, aren't they? What I'm hauling home this time is a water-cooled 250 ampere AC/DC TIG welder. A broken one, of course. I couldn't resist turning it on before taking it apart. I need to know what kind of defects I'm looking for, if any are actually present. It looks pretty good, apart from that water pressure temperature alarm. Maybe that's just a result of no torch connected. After turning it off and back on though, it got significantly worse. Now it's complaining about at least one of the 3 phases missing. It did actually trigger one of my 16 ampere circuit breakers, which is not surprising with such a large transformer and the inrush current that goes along with that. Powering the thing via traditional melting fuses solves that problem, but it needs at least a modern residual current circuit breaker in addition to that. Otherwise it's way too easy for a conductive human to get fried while poking around in that thing. And poking around is exactly what's going to happen. Upstairs, where it's warm and where most of my tools are. When it comes to carrying stuff that's heavier than I am upstairs, I'm an expert now, and I've taken full advantage of that expertise. The thing has seen a lot and it's dirty inside. Maybe even a water leak or two. That tank looks like a poorly DIY'd replacement. Said the guy who's never touched a TIG welder before, and will no doubt deliver his fair share of fails in the weeks or even months to come. This big machine looks menacing at first, but it's really just a transformer, rectifier and power switch. and some trivial cooling and control electronics. The component connecting the rectifier and the output that used to sit in this spot is worth a closer look. It's the discrete predecessor to IGBT power bricks, and the dirtiest part in this entire machine by far. It has a few electrolytic caps as well to smooth the rectifier voltage. And two separate floating power supplies on that daughter board. For gate driving, I think. There's a grand total of 56 IRF 540 N-channel MOSFETs in this thing. And they've just arranged them in 4 groups, forming a super simple H-bridge circuit. That gets controlled by PWM to put out the right current value in DC both polarities or AC. They seem to have a coating, but I can't stand the dirt. I'm giving these guys a dish soapy scrubbing in my alchemy bathtub. This works because I'm not in a hurry and I can just let them dry for days on a radiator. Oh look, there were circuit boards hidden underneath that crust. I'd like to uncrust the rest of the machine as well, but I don't think it'll make a difference for the big boys on the ground floor. I could have done a much better job by taking these apart all the way, but then I would have torn the conformal coating and the thermal interface isolation material. There isn't much left of the torch. Somehow they managed to strip the threads where the electrode clamp goes. No handle either, just bare copper pipes for water in, out and gas. The Elmo hose will carry water and welding current. Not by means of water conductivity, but with a surprisingly thin and flexible copper strand that's just floating around in the water hose. Even if that hose was completely full of copper, I would be so skeptical to have that conduct 250 ampere. But I guess the direct water cooling of the cable is what makes it possible. Here's an exclusive first glance at the troubleshooting skills of the previous owner. Yummy. I wouldn't be surprised to find solder joints that have been cleaned with an angle grinder later. The hoses are luxuriously long and flexible though, so I'm going to try and keep them. Am I really? Ugh. Here's the anatomy of a water-cooled TIG torch. So simple. Luckily, replacement parts are adequately priced. I think I paid around €20 for a torch handpiece and another 20 for small parts, like the gas lens, electrodes, and that twist chuck that holds them. I made my own handle though, from heat shrink tubing and a heat shrink 3D print. If I ever have to go all out 250 ampere with this thing, it'll probably become the world's first ergonomic memory TIG torch. That molds too and remembers the shape of my hand. Then I discovered that torch and hoses are not even the right ones for this unit. The high current and liquid cooling connectors fit, but gas doesn't. These connectors close the lines when nothing is plugged in, so they could be responsible for the overpressure error we've seen earlier. Luckily, I found exactly the right quick connector at RS Components. Same goes for the trigger switch or foot pedal connector. The welder is 30 years old, but this beautiful amphenol part is still available. It's a miracle. By shorting out 2 of the pins, a water pump relay is energized. And a few more minor problems are revealed. I'm happy with my residual current circuit breaker decision right now. After a little bit more work, I still didn't expect anything to happen. But shockingly, we've got an arc. A long one. In my opinion, that's awesome already, but it'll take a while to melt any kind of metal this way. This is just a high voltage, low current pilot arc that pre-ionizes the air to make it conductive for the actual low voltage high welding current. In spite of my 100 ampere setting, that still seems to be mostly absent. A quick unsolicited shout out to the manufacturer, who's making even more beautiful machines today. Without a moment's hesitation, they just sent me a 30-year-old service manual for this thing, including troubleshooting advice and block diagrams, letting me progress much faster. What a rare, noble policy by Rehm. So here's what I learned. For aluminium, I'm in alternating current mode. There are much better welding instructors on YouTube that can explain why. What matters for the repair is that on top of the high voltage starting arc, I'm also getting the occasional bright flash. Here's the high current H-bridge again in its natural habitat. For operation in DC electrode positive, one of the high side switches and the opposing low side switch are closed, connecting the torch to positive and the ground clamp to negative, and indicating the same with these useful onboard LEDs. You can already tell where this is going, right? In reverse, in electrode negative mode, it does connect the torch to negative, but the ground clamp gets nothing. That's because there is a dead opto-isolator, and it's a good thing that its failure mode is to do nothing. Had it gotten stuck with a high output, we would have connected the ground clamp to high and low simultaneously, resulting in an absolutely apocalyptic shoot-through current. I'm talking about a carpet-burning photonic induction event on the Richter scale here. No fun. I've replaced the dead TLP2200 and all of the brittle ribbon cables and connectors as well. I blew out all the old slime from the water cooling loop with compressed air. Here's an overpressure switch that was disconnected by troubleshooting expert previous owner. I've replaced the cooling fluid with deionized water for now, because I can't shake the feeling that conductive automotive antifreeze that was no doubt in there before isn't such a good choice for this system. And I got a new mask, so that I can go blind with some dignity in an awesome laser accident, and not as a result of lame welding arcs. Time for an appropriately sized bottle of argon to complete my cozy living room welding setup. And now I'm really ready for all of the exciting welding tasks that I've prepared for this occasion. No, seriously, all of the exhibits in this video will appear again in the future. Welder can now do electrode negative for steel. I want to try and reinforce a bicycle frame, for example, to make it work with 2 kilowatt hub motors. It can do electrode positive for turning pricey electrodes into fireworks. And most importantly for me, I think, it can now do AC properly for aluminium. No idea how to set any of the parameters just yet. My filler rod seems to oxidize immediately. But you can bet that I'm going to learn all about it and become an absolutely intolerable aficionado. And you can do the same with Skillshare and any out of thousands of classes in dozens of creative and business categories. Skillshare is a huge online learning community, and their premium membership gives you unlimited access to everything, so you can become the know-it-all in whatever topic you like best. Whether you want to satisfy your curiosity, creativity, or advance in your career, Skillshare is the perfect place to keep you learning and thriving. A big orange TIG welder in the center of my living room is a bold statement. But as long as I'm confident with it and maintain such an industrial style consistently, it'll work out great, says Emily Henderson, stylist, author and host of a Skillshare original class about space styling. Costing less than $10 a month in an annual subscription, Skillshare is also incredibly affordable, especially in comparison to in-person classes and workshops. Because Skillshare is sponsoring this video, you can sign up with a link in the video description and get a 2 months free trial. And that's all for today, but I've already filmed enough material for another one or two. Thank you for watching and see you later this year.